let's bring it now back to Bitcoin. Like, what is the connection for you in this? What does this make? Why does this make it interesting for you?
Well, because nuclear reactors are optimal economics when they can run at full capacity, at their maximum capacity factor. And when they aren't, when they don't have the demand to justify that, the economics don't really justify building nuclear reactors. Like if you're running it at half capacity, the economics just don't make sense.
Because of the operational costs.
Yeah, well, like it's mostly the initial capital expenditure and the cost of capital. That is the biggest economic issue with building reactors.
Once it's built, what are your input costs? I guess staff, running,
just operations and maintenance and fuel.
Is fuel expensive? Is the uranium expensive?
Relative to the cost of the reactor, not really.
So the majority of the cost is the upfront cost.
Oh, absolutely.
Whereas I would guess something like natural gas and coal, you actually have a much higher percentage of your cost is the cost of the actual material.
Yeah, especially when they're highly variable markets.
Yeah. And so the price of energy from nuclear is a lot more stable.
Yes.
So does mining, is the option here with mining is that it makes the capital outlay, it's going to offset the capital outlay?
Yeah, it'll offset a lot of the economic liabilities that reactors are subject to. Like when they're over generating, either they just curtail it and earn nothing for it, or they pay other jurisdictions to take that electricity away. So if they were to plug in Bitcoin miners to capture that, they could turn like a liability into a revenue stream. It's like right now in a regulated grid like Ontario, the reactors are paid, they get, I think, 8.7 cents per kilowatt hour, regardless of what the market cost of electricity is and the demand is. So when they have to curtail or sell at negative prices, that ends up getting put on the taxpayer because it's government subsidized.
It was interesting what you were saying about New York last night.
Yeah, because one of the reasons that New York was able to get away with shutting down the Indian Point is because they buy lots of electricity from Ontario and Quebec.
Really?
Yeah. Well, Quebec, a few decades ago, they overbuilt the crap out of their hydroelectric infrastructure, and that's part of the economic profiles that they sell that to some of the northeastern states, like Maine, New Hampshire.
Huh. I didn't know about that at all. And New York's really weird with some of their policy decisions. They seem to be anti-everything.
Yeah, it's interesting because every jurisdiction has different political and social issues that they are concerned with. So it depends on your political leaning, really.
So my one concern with Bitcoin miners supporting energy grids is that there's a limitation to how many different nuclear plants and grids that Bitcoin mining can support, because we can't have infinite Bitcoin mining. So the more people that do it, there's the more competitive it becomes, and the less money, Bitcoin they will generate from those operations.
But that's the game theory, though. If an industry like nuclear were to go deep into Bitcoin mining, that would make the Bitcoin mining network even more robust.
But that's saying security leads price. Well,
potentially. But it's just, as more people have confidence in the reliability of the Bitcoin network, then price potentially goes up because as demand goes up, and seeing more legitimate industries taking it seriously will give that sort of confidence that will drive demand potentially. Like a lot of it is just kind of playing into the game theory ideas. It's going to be hyper competitive, but then that will drive more adoption on both fronts, on mining and just Bitcoin in general.
And is the nuclear community that you're part of, how aware are they of Bitcoin mining? Is it a growing topic?
People that I talk to, they have no idea until I bring it up to them.
What are they like? What the fuck are you on about, you crazy man?
Pretty much, yeah. I brought up Bitcoin mining to the CEO of my company, and he was like, "What? Like you mine Bitcoin with shovels, like typical mining?" I was just like, "No."
Dude.
So there was a bit of explaining to lead him down that path.
Did you listen to my show with Adam Wright about when they were going to be mining from the methane that's extracted from refuse sites, like the dumps?
Yeah, like that's
but
awesome.
Did you hear what he said about the guy said? So he was talking about putting Bitcoin miners there, and he said, "How do you know there's Bitcoin in these dumps?" So is there a bite from your boss?
They've got somewhat of an interest. Like when you tell them that you can set a floor on the cost of energy, they definitely perk up and they're like, well, how does this work?
Huh.
What do we have to do with that?
Tell me more about this.
Yeah.
I want to go to a nuclear site.
You're just plugging in computers and consuming excess electricity. And it's a completely independent market from your local grid that you can sell electricity to.
And it spits out magic internet money.
Yeah. It's money printer.
Bitcoin printer. So what else is coming in this kind of like area? Because it all sounds really exciting, but then I feel like we're going to be waiting 10, 20 years to actually see anything.
Well, potentially the Bitcoin mining can be plugged into the existing nuclear fleet as it is and shore up the economics right now, because a lot of the reactors that are being shut down are because they're not economically competitive on a grid that has a large share of wind and solar, because they tend to operate at a low capacity factor when there are other intermittent sources providing electricity to these grids.
That's quite interesting because we need wind and solar and nuclear to all sort of coexist.
Yeah, but you need something flexible that can manage that surplus. That's where I think the Bitcoin mining can come in. Like there's all kinds of other, like the chemical operations that I described earlier, like hydrogen production, desalination, like those I see as more like a secondary tech industries to come in after Bitcoin mining. Like think of it like Brandon Quittam's the pioneer species idea. Like the Bitcoin comes in as the pioneer, seeds the energy resource, and then as more sophisticated energy buyers come into that market, they will push out the Bitcoin miners, and then they'll to be redeployed elsewhere to other projects.
The desalination is interesting because my understanding of desalination is it's just so expensive.
Because it takes a buttload of energy.
Right.
But if you've got nuclear reactors that produce both electricity and heat, they are the optimal technology to ramp up desalination technology.
Talk to me about the economics and financing of this. Like, how does it all work? Is that the biggest roadblock?
Pretty much, because the cost of capital is incredibly expensive when you have like 90% of your operating, your cost of building these things comes before they're even built.
Right. How are they currently financed?
Public-private partnerships between governments and whatever private industry is interested in the technology.
I know that was a big issue with Hinkley. Danny, can you look at how Hinkley was funded?
Yeah.
Because I know that was a massive issue with that.
Yeah, like half of the cost of capital on Hinkley, from what I understand, is just the interest on the initial investment.
Crap.
Yeah. So if we can have some way to drive down the timeline on the return on investment, that will significantly improve the capital requirements for these reactors, because you'll recover that capital a lot faster, so you'll be paying interest for less duration.
Is that what Bitcoin does?
That is what I'm hoping how Bitcoin fits into this.
It says here that building Britain's first nuclear reactor since 1995 will cost twice as much as the 2012 Olympics.
What? How much?
20.3 billion at present.
Oh, I kind of think I'd rather have a couple of more Olympics.
Well, a lot of that comes down to that the workforce was not maintained over the last few decades. So it's got to be, all of that's got to be completely reinvigorated from scratch. You got to rebuild your supply chains. You have to get the technology rolling again. Whereas in Canada, where we have all the refurbishment plans, that's how we've sustained our workforce and supply chains.
Here we go. To pay for it, the British government has entered into a complex financial agreement with Electricité de France, EDF, the energy giant that is 83% owned by the French government, and China General Nuclear Power Group, a state-run Chinese energy company. Under this contract, British electricity consumers will pay billions over a 35-year period, according to Gerard. We cannot be for sure that in 2060 or 2065, British pensioners who currently school will not still be paying for the advancement of the nuclear industry in France. I mean, it just sounds.
This is through the Guardian too, who are probably anti-nuclear.
Yeah, that's a fair point. We also have an ability in the UK to make everything significantly more expensive than it should be, and the final product is usually shitter. I don't know why we're so good at it, but we spend so much on our trains, and our trains are shit. It just must be our way, Danny.
Yeah. Ryan, you wanted to talk through this, I think, before the show.
Well, yeah, that's just the the general plan for the SMR action plan, with what the intention is and where they want to apply the small modular reactors to, just for heavy industry, oil sands, remote communities, replacing coal plants. And so like there's a lot of potential for a lot of revenue in these. But like my take is that if we include Bitcoin mining on this, we can improve these timelines. We can replace a lot more diesel generators, because the North is plagued with costly energy. Like in some places where they have to fly in diesel, like they have like as much as like 90 cents kilowatt hour for their electricity, which is
Wow.
insane. And a lot of that gets subsidized. So then those subsidies that could be going to other community development projects are just go into this black hole of just making sure that they have energy that they can afford.
Yeah, so Danny's just brought up a slide. What's the slide called, Danny?
I'm not. Where is this actually from, Ryan?
This is from the Economics and Finance Working Group on the SMR roadmap. So I highly recommend anybody that's interested in this stuff to read the SMR roadmap. It's a good 80 pages for each of the documents, but it's well worth getting a good lay of the land as to what's going on, the different community engagement that's going on, because like a lot throughout Northern Canada, there has to be very strong engagement with the Indigenous communities, because they're going to be the ones that are going to benefit from these. But we need to make sure that they are content with the way that we're going about it, which requires significant communication and reciprocal benefits.
Yeah, so this is the macroeconomic, what did it say, action plan, Danny, or benefits, and there's a domestic market. So SMRs meet a fraction of the potential. SMRs meeting a fraction of the potential can provide significant economic benefits for Canada, including up to 6,000 direct and indirect jobs per year between 2030 and 2040, and up to 10 billion in direct impacts and 9 billion in annual indirect impacts over the same time frame. These are conservative estimates and do not take into account potential future use of SMR, such as power and greenhouses, desalination, and hydrogen production, all of which could increase the overall economic potential. So is there a lot of work that has to go into lobby to actually have this happen?
Yeah. And right now they're trying to update all the regulatory requirements to reflect the new SMRs, because they are a lot safer and they're going to be smaller. So it's going to require different regulations than the old reactors. But we have the chicken and egg problem of we have to demonstrate these things and prove what they're claiming before we can really establish that regulatory framework.
You need a prototype.
Yes. So that's where we're building at the various existing licensed nuclear facilities in Canada. So at Canadian Nuclear Labs, at Darlington, Pickering, Bruce, Point Lepreau, and potentially a few other sites may be chosen for demonstration reactors. My hope is that when they do build these demonstration reactors, they want to develop what's called the Cedar Park, the Clean Energy Demonstration, Innovation, and Research Facilities, where they're going to bring in peripheral technologies that will benefit from nuclear. So like all the ones that were just listed there, like hydrogen, desalination, greenhouses. And my goal is to have Bitcoin mining included in that as well, to show off the economic benefits of having a price floor on your electricity.
It's pretty rad.
That's my hope, because my hope is that by including Bitcoin mining, we can deploy these reactors like bigger and more, and come up with a lot more deployment scenarios where that would not have made sense otherwise, because you don't potentially have the customers that you need to sell that electricity to right away. But if you have the Bitcoin miners, you have them available the moment that a reactor begins generating electricity. And then over time, you develop the transmission infrastructure to get wherever you need it to go, or you build the remote mine that's going to be built on that site. And then you can either redeploy the Bitcoin miners, or you can set them up in such a way that they can scale up and down with the day-to-day variability of the local demands.